Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Question in my mind that this intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered be published, which contained a manufactured intelligence document. It's worse than even politicization of intelligence. It was manufactured intelligence that sought to achieve President Obama and his team's objective, which was undermining President Trump's presidency and subverting the will of the American people. So yes, next week we will be releasing more detailed information about how exactly this took place and the extent to which this information was sought to be hidden from the American people, hidden from officials who would be in a position to do something about it. And that's really the point here that I think is most important, Maria, and you said it in your opening. Accountability is essential for the future of our country, for the American people to have any sense of trust in the integrity of our democratic republic. Accountability, action, prosecution, indictments for those who are responsible for trying to steal our democracy is essential for us to make sure that this never happens to our country again.
Good evening, American patriots. You had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. The biggest political scandal in American history in 249 years is unfolding right in front of our eyes. And for the most part, the liberal news media is ignoring it because for years they pushed this fake news, the Russia collusion hoax. And we will talk a little bit more about that here tonight. But before we dive into that, we've got a couple of breaking news stories I'd like to share with you. This is just coming across the wire. A New York man is facing federal charges after building and stashing homemade bombs across Manhattan, including on active subway tracks and residential rooftops. His name is Michael Gann, G-A-N-N. He's 55 years old. He's from Inwood. He was charged today with manufacturing at least 7 IEDs using chemicals that he bought online, according to U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton. The safety of New Yorkers is paramount, Clayton said. Michael Gann built explosive devices, stored them on rooftops, and threw one onto a subway track, putting countless lives at risk. Thanks to swift work by our law enforcement partners, no one has been harmed. They have prevented a tragedy, thank God. Authorities said Gann actions include throwing an IED onto the Williamsburg Bridge subway track and hoarding explosives, some with shotgun shells, above Manhattan apartment buildings. On Instagram, Gann posted, "Who wants me to go out to play like no tomorrow?" FBI Assistant Director Christopher Rea created the swift partnership between agencies and stopped him before he could inflict harm. New York Commissioner Jessica Tisch said the coordinated effort intervene before he caused any harm. The case is being prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's National Security and International Narcotics Unit. He is just one of many people that are hell-bent on causing us harm. Also, in other news tonight, singer Ozzy Osbourne has left us and has departed for rock and roll heaven. I'll be posting later this evening some photographs of when I had the opportunity to meet Ozzy. And when he was doing a USO tour, he did several USO tour for troops. I'll be putting that into my community section. Regardless of whatever you thought of Ozzy Osbourne, yes, he was a wild and crazy man back in the day. But as the lead singer of Black Sabbath, he put out some number one hits, and will go down in history as a rock and roll legend, especially for those that were into heavy metal rock. I, for one, was not. I was more into Southern rock, but in my later years, I loved listening to a lot of Ozzy's music, especially Crazy Train. And there'll be something special that I'll be posting about that tonight. As far as Crazy Train, is when you see the pictures, pay close attention to what's going on in the background. As I was saying in the beginning of tonight's show, the biggest scandal in American history in 249 years is unfolding. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, said that intelligence was manufactured and politicized by the most powerful people in the Obama administration in 2016. And Americans will finally learn the truth. But the legacy media outlets didn't take the announcement seriously. On Friday, she declassified documents revealing the overwhelming evidence that demonstrates how, after President Donald Trump won the 2016 election against Hillary Clinton, then President Barack Obama and his national security team laid the groundwork for what would be the years-long Trump-Russia collusion probe and spent millions and millions of our taxpayer money for nothing. Wasted it away because they knew it was all fake. ABC News and NBC News failed to cover the story at all until Sunday night. CBS News addressed the story on Sunday as well on Face the Nation. But anchor Margaret Brennan asked Representative Jim Himes, Democrat, Connecticut, to come on the show, who asked if there was any legal basis for prosecution. And the Democrat senator said told CBS viewers that Gabbard peddled a dangerous lie that has no basis for prosecution. When you start throwing around language like treason, somebody will get hurt, Himes said. There is not a judge in the land that will treat this with anything other than laughter, he said. Newsbusters analyst George Bonatti was stunned. The story was only covered by one of the legacy's Sunday public affairs programs after NBC's Meet the Press and ABC's This Week completely ignored it. Rest assured, it wasn't a bipartisan panel segment or an interview with Gabbard. CBS, Margaret Brennan, bringing on the ranking House intelligent Democrat in order to firefight the release and the actions that are about to take place. CNN mentioned the Gabbard bombshell only twice since it was first released by Fox News Digital Friday afternoon. The first time on Saturday morning and the second time on Monday's installment yesterday of The Lead with Jack Tapper. Tapper invited Representative Jason Crow, Democrat, Colorado, to bash the report, insisting that Tulsi Gabbard was trying to get back into Trump's good graces after initial intel reports watered down the effectiveness of Trump's airstrike on Iran's nuclear facilities, while also trying to distract the country's attention from the Jeffrey Epstein case. And they wonder why they're losing viewership. And they wonder why that the #1 cable news network for almost 20 years running is Fox and not them. They wonder why the children's program Nick at Night has more viewership than MSNBC does on any of their programs. Because they keep peddling fake, false crap. MSNBC, meanwhile, spent more time downplaying the report and suggesting Republicans are using it to distract from unflattering news. You know, you forget to mention MSNBC and CNN and ABC and CBS and all the rest of you liberal news outlets that for 4 years, if there was anything with the Epstein files, the Democrats had the House of Senate in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Justice, and didn't release it. In fact, Republicans, who were the minority then, requested the files be released, and it was Chuck Schumer who fought against it. But now that Trump's in office, CNN is crowding out people that we've never even heard of that were supposedly girlfriends of Epstein that we've never heard of before, that I'd love to know what they're paying them, because they're coming out saying all kinds of ridiculous, crazy shit that supposedly Trump did or said. It just, I don't know how you think you're going to win midterms, continuing with this dog and pony show, clown show, basically, a shit show. There's a reason why you lost in a landslide, because you're just batshit crazy. Latest distraction comes from the National Intelligence Director, Tulsi Gabbard, who put out a baseless report Friday accusing the Obama administration of manufacturing intelligence that laid the groundwork for the FBI's Russia probe into Trump. MSNBC's Aman Mahdi said. John Burnham, Obama's era CIA director turned MSNBC analyst, told Dateline White House host Nicole Wallace yesterday that Gabbard's report was really troubling and very dangerous, saying it misrepresents a wholesale manner what the intelligence community did in 2016, adding that the misrepresentations are ludicrous. The New York Times ran the headlines. Gabbard claims Obama administration tried to undermine Trump in 2016, but put heavy focus on Democrats' criticism of her report. Democrats denounced the effort as politically motivated, error-ridden, and in contradiction with previous reviews of the assessment, the Times wrote, before citing Himes and Trump Democrats on the Senate Intel Committee, such as Senator Mark Warner of Virginia. The Washington Post waited until yesterday evening to acknowledge the report even existed, but only in a brief mention in an article about how Trump wants to focus on anything else as MAGA would focus on Epstein. Documents revealed that in months leading up to the November 2016 election, the intelligence community consistently assessed that Russia was probably not trying to influence the election by using any cyber means. The documents that the intelligence community has now released show that before the 2016 election, there was no evidence showing Russia tried to directly get involved to alter any vote counts. However, members of the intelligence community later suggested that Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted to help Trump win. Tulsi Gabbard argued the narrative shift was politically motivated rather than based on new findings. Creating this piece of manufactured intelligence that claims that Russia had helped Donald Trump get elected contradicted every other assessment that had been made previously in the months leading up to the election that said exactly the opposite. That Russia had neither the intent nor the capability to try and hack the United States election. So, the effect of what President Obama and his senior national team did was subvert the will of the American people, undermining our democracy, our democratic republic, and enacting what would be essentially a years-long coup against President Trump, who was duly elected by the American people. Evidence released by Galbraith's office implicate Burnham, then National Director of Intelligence, James Clapper, former FBI Director James Comey, former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, among others, in addition to Barack Obama himself. Notably, Clapper and Burnham are now on-air analysts for CNN and MSNBC. Obama's office released a statement today decrying the allegations against the former president. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of the White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the documents issued last week undercut the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, led by then Chairman Marco Rubio. But they failed to mention that Marco Rubio didn't have these documents that Tulsi just released. The emails and all the documents that were made up. The Intel community said Russia wasn't trying to influence anything. But Obama didn't like that. So he got his group of people to get together to do something about it. And the documents prove that they made up this whole Russia hoax bullshit. That they already knew that the Steele dossier was fake, that it was bought and paid for by the Clinton campaign, and they all conspired together, colluded, to try and bring down a duly elected president. And then the House, led by the Democrats, not once, but twice, spent millions of your dollars and mine on impeachment trials. You can run all you want. The evidence is being released. Some of the files have already come out. They came out on Friday, and more will be coming out tomorrow and Thursday and Friday of this week. And by mid next week, they will all be out. And they're all being turned over to the Department of Justice. It is a matter of time now before you will hear that certain individuals that were involved will be in deep, deep shit. Grand jury type shit. Going to prison type shit. The Democrats can try and spin this all they want up in Washington, D.C. The documents will speak for themselves. Furthermore, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley has now released declassified documents related to the FBI's investigation into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's private email server. when she served in the federal government, revealing the FBI reportedly failed to do their investigation fully in the matter. Of course, we already knew that, and I talked about it extensively on this show. The documents show an extreme lack of effort and due diligence in the FBI's investigation of former Secretary Clinton's email usage and mishandling of highly classified information. Grassley said in his press release, under Comey's leadership, the FBI failed to perform fundamental investigative work and left key pieces of evidence on the cutting room floor. The Comey FBI's neglect, approach, and perhaps intentionally lack of effort in the Clinton investigation is a stark contrast to its full throttle investigation of the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, which was based on the uncorroborated and now discredited Steele dossier. Comey's decision-making process smacks of political infection. Clinton, who served as former President Barack Obama's Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013, was investigated by the FBI over claims she improperly stored and transmitted classified material on a private email server, which she did. The FBI advised the Department of Justice in 2016, ahead of that year's massive election that pitted Clinton against, at the time, future President Donald Trump, that Clinton should not face prosecution over the matter. Although there is evidence of potential violation of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor will bring such a case. Then FBI Director James Comey said in a press release, which we all watched him say. Basically, if you remember this from 2016, and we talked about it extensively on the Douglas Ducote Show, I even played you the video several times of his speech. He took to the podium. It was live, covered by all the news agencies. And for the first several minutes, it was a slam dunk. He laid out all the crimes that Hillary Clinton had conducted, federal crimes, crimes that would send her to prison. Do not pass go. And then ended it by saying no reasonable prosecutor would take this case and do anything with it. Which, oh, by the way, isn't the FBI director's job to do in the first place. That's the Department of Justice job. All he can do is refer it to them, and he didn't. He made the case himself, and therefore, they just went with it and decided not to go any further. Why? Well, we now know why. Because they were making all this shit up to try and cover and try and get Hillary in office and Donald Trump prosecuted for something that he didn't do. You know, it just, as a former Democrat, I've watched this party self-implode. I'm not talking about the regular Democrats out there. They're just trying to work for a living and put food on the table. I'm not talking about the Democrats who aren't into politics. I'm talking about the Democrat leadership in Washington, D.C. They are a bunch of baffled, just disgusting subhuman particles of existence. That their Trump derangement syndrome is so serious and so bad that they just don't have a grasp on reality of what's really going on in the world. They're doubling down. They're stuck on stupid. They can't get away from, how do we take down this man? It's not going to happen. You threw everything you had, to include lies and made up shit, And we, the people, saw right through it and put him back in office. Regardless of what you think of Donald J. Trump or don't, there were people that don't like Donald Trump, that can't stand Donald Trump, that were Democrats or Republicans that don't like him, but they voted for him anyhow because he was a better candidate than Hillary Clinton. He was a better candidate than Kamala Harris. But they just can't let it go. And they're never going to let it go. And they're about to see some shit go down that's they're not going to like. It's about to get real. And of course, the liberals will be just throwing out, oh, look what CNN said and MSNBC said, and look at this article, and look at that article, and here's what's really going on, and this is what was said back then, and it doesn't matter. What matters is, what do the documents that they were hiding have to say? That's the factual evidence that will go in front of a jury of their peers. Those documents that show that this was all made up to take down a duly elected president of the United States. You can't get away from that. No matter how you try and spin it, you're never going to be able to get away from the documents that are being declassified, unredacted, and sent over to the Department of Justice to put these people in prison. Facts matter. Making up shit and making assumptions do not matter, or at least not to reasonable people. Now, that being said, let me just throw something out there. Give a little, what is going on with my computer over here? That one decided to do an update all on its own without asking for permission. Okay, you do your thing. Look, for 4 years, the Epstein files were in the control of the Democrats, and they refused to release them. When they had the House, the Senate, in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, everything they threw at the wall to try and take Donald Trump down failed. Didn't work. And even when Republicans tried to get it released, they wouldn't release it. Chuck Schumer stood in the way and made sure the Department of Justice did not release them. Now, we don't know who they were covering for, the Democrats at the time, but rest assured that if it really did implicate Donald Trump as some type of factual thing, they would have released them. I mean, that's common sense tells you that, because everything else they tried didn't work. Even things that were factual, such as grab a woman by the private parts, the kitty cat, didn't matter. So they were covering for something. I mean, that's just facts. We do know now that Schumer, come to find out, was paid a lot of money by Jeffrey Epstein, or donated to his re-election campaigns. We also know that many other Democrat members of the House and the Senate received a lot of money from Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe that's all they were trying to cover up. I don't know, because I haven't seen it. So now that Trump's in office, now the Democrats want it released. And Department of Justice comes out and says, look, we've now went over all this stuff. There was no client list that everybody assumed there was. I mean, even Dan Bongino, the second in command at FBI, and Kash Patel, the FBI director, were assuming there was, telling everybody there was, and what are they trying to hide? But they didn't have the files. They were guessing like everybody else was. Then they all get in, and now they're in charge, and they actually see what's there. And even Epstein's own attorney comes out and says there was no client list that Jeffrey Epstein had. There were lists that the FBI had of victims and victim statements of people. There's a list of that. And why is that being suppressed? Because if you want to release that, then you have to release the other parts of that. And this is directly from the attorney, Jeffrey Epstein's attorney, that in the FBI's investigation, they found out that many of these victims were liars and not credible, and they made shit up. And even some of them recanted their story and admitted they lied. So if you're going to say that this person molested little girls with Jeffrey Epstein because this person who's a victim said so, but then later on in the investigation, this person turns out to have been a liar and made it all up, then you can't just put this out there without this coming out there too, and both sides of the story being told. And who do you think is going to tell both sides of the story? Not CNN, not MSNBC. They're only going to leave this story out there. They're not going to tell you the other part, that it turned out to be fake. And that's the cost of this. Now, Donald Trump then said, fuck it. Had enough of this bullshit. Went to the DOJ and said, just release the shit. Put it all out there. I don't give a fuck anymore. Just put it all out there. Release the crap, okay? Well, what Donald Trump didn't know is that a lot of this stuff was under seal by federal judges and can't be released. Why is that? Oh, because this person wasn't telling the truth. And it would make this person look bad if this person was a liar. And they don't want to do something like that. And the real victims then are the ones that just, it's like the race card, for instance. It constantly gets thrown out there. You're discrediting real racism when everything is racism. Those that are really affected by racism, you're just spitting on them. So now there's a judge thing where they're holding this up. Donald Trump said, I don't give a shit. Let's go to the Supreme Court and get that overturned. Let's get the shit out there. Release it. In step the Speaker of the House, Johnson, who now says that under his watch, it's not going to happen. Now, that makes any reasonable person, regardless of your political party, ask the question, now what are Republicans hiding? What's going on, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, the Speaker of the House? How come all of a sudden you now are trying to block this from being released? Look at that shit. We're updated now. Give me a second. So, and it just adds to the whole conspiracy thing. When Democrats had control, they didn't want it released. Republicans get control, they don't want it released. All I can tell you is, I don't know, and you don't know. Regardless if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a liberal, a conservative, we don't know what's in those files because we can't seem to get them released to we the people. I want to see them. I want to see every damn one of them and let the cards fall where they may. But I get it. The liberal media is only going to show you the negative shit that goes against a Republican or against Trump and not the Democrats. So in that respect, maybe that's why Mike Johnson is saying bullshit. We're not releasing this stuff and fighting against it. In fact, he said he will send everybody home on recess if they keep pushing this. I don't know. I really don't know. But what I do know is when you smoke crack, it messes with your brain really, really bad. And I'm talking about Hunter Biden, former President Biden's son. You may or may not have heard the little rant that he went on just not too many hours ago. So let me help you with this if you haven't. Hunter Biden raged against President Donald Trump and his mass deportation efforts during a explicit laden interview with Philadelphia podcaster in which he called Trump, quote, a fucking thug, and then tried to draw parallels to the 19th century government actions against black freed slaves. Biden and Channel 5 podcaster Andrew Callahan spoke for 3 hours on a range of topics, from the former first son's cocaine use to the former president's disastrous debate where he claims, it's because Joe Biden was on Ambien, to theories that he was marketing paintings to assure overseas interests in favor of his dad. But Joe Biden or Hunter Biden didn't like the way the interview was going, so he just tried to steer it into crazy shit. For instance, on immigration, Hunter Biden began by revisiting the Reconstruction era and the Ku Klux Klan's early role as a voter suppression organization against Black Americans. Now, why would he do that? Does he not know who they were? He discussed an 1873 incident that took place in Colfax, Louisiana, and tried to compare what Donald Trump is doing, deporting illegals, to former Confederate militiamen and the Klan members who attacked and massacred these black freed slaves that had basically took over a courthouse. They even fired a cannon at the courthouse to kill these black people. Some of them surrendered and they killed them anyhow. But what Hunter Biden doesn't realize, or maybe it's not because he doesn't know shit about history, it's because his brain is warped from the crack he smoked and we all know he's too stupid to know anything about American history, is that these Confederate soldiers and the KKK members that killed all these black people, what political party did they belong to? They were Democrats, Hunter. Furthermore, since you brought up that particular incident, the freed slaves had taken over the courthouse. And look, don't take my word for this. Google it. Look it up on Wikipedia or many of the history stuff that's out there. They took over the courthouse in protest because the Democrat Party was trying to steal the election of the first elected Republican governor of Louisiana. So the black slaves that were freed, that took over the courthouse, were protecting the Republican elected governor. And the Democrats who founded the KKK and were all the KKK members then and Confederate soldiers slaughtered them. Facts matter. Well, to everybody but Hunter Biden. Comparing Trump's to Democrats' horrible action was really dumb, coming from the Democrat son of a former Democrat president. But he wasn't done. Biden then claimed that white men are 4 to 5 times more likely to commit a violent crime than any illegal alien. I mean, you couldn't make this shit up if you tried. I mean, you just can't. He went on to say that if he were president, God help us, he would call the Salvadorian president, who accepted many of the deported illegals, and warned him that either you fucking send them back to the U.S. or I'm going to fucking invade your country. It's a fucking crime what they're doing. Trump's a fucking dictator thug, he added. Lucky for American people, a house cat has a better chance of being president than Hunter Biden. Hell, Barney the Purple Dinosaur could get elected over Hunter Biden, and we don't have a clue who's wearing that ridiculous freaking outfit. But we'd vote for that person over Hunter Biden, wouldn't we? If anyone agreed with Hunter's unhinged ranting, Kamala Harris would be in the White House right now. But the American people sent President Trump back to the White House because they wanted him to undo all of his Joe Biden's failed policies, including his open border agenda to let countless criminal illegals come in and invade our country. You had many places you could be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I'm forever grateful. Whether you're watching me tonight live on a YouTube or Rumble or X, formerly Twitter, or Facebook. We're going live on Facebook, on the Facebook page for the Douglas Ducote Show tonight. Please subscribe. Share it with your family and friends. Let them know if they have little ones in the room to keep the volume down or wear headsets, because Mr. Doug every now and then says a bad word or two, or in some cases, I don't know, 20? I don't keep count of them. But, hey, shit happens. I'll be back on Thursday night for another live broadcast. I hope you will join me. If anything breaks of major importance between now and then, such as, I don't know, let's say the FBI starts putting some former Obama people in handcuffs, I'll be happy to come on and share it with you all. Until then, as always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families in our country. May God bless the United States of America, and may God bless each and every one of you. Thank you, my friends. God bless you. Have a safe and wonderful evening. And I'll see you back here on Thursday night.